many mini painters are quite afraid of ruining a treasured model. So today I'm going to ruin a model I've wanted for a while to prove that it's not that big a concern. Sometimes you might even buy a model because you feel like you're not worthy of it. Well, as long as you're not going into debt, buy it. Sometimes you might not open the packet as if to protect it from yourself. Open it. I did, and I even based this one. It makes a change. Sometimes you might never take a model off of your pile of shame and get paint on it, because you feel you're not up to the task. More important than anything else, you should paint that model. Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and this is a Russian sniper from Victoria Miniatures. If you haven't figured it out already, I'll be painting her up in my Tanith First and Only scheme that I have shown on the channel a few times now in fuzzy eye strain inducing videos. I've spent a lot of effort trying to get the best quality footage of my painting, and I have improved somewhat since my original videos. Now I'm still using a phone camera, so it's not that great, but just go back and watch one of the old ones and compare. I'm trying my best with what I can afford. This model isn't a Tanith model, but it has a cloak, and that's just enough for me, because there's something else about this model specifically that makes it one of my favourites. And that would be the pose. Rather than a dynamic action pose of someone charging into battle, she is simply standing. But standing in a way that strikes me with a confidence of someone who has been there and done that. Not just a model with a gun, but a soldier. With the confidence of training and experience, and the familiarity with weapons handling. She is, I think, a tribute to the Russian women who fought as snipers in World War II, and who were not treated as equals. They featured in a lot of propaganda images at the time, but were very competent soldiers and, famously, as snipers. I suspect that the inspiration for this model is this image. However, due to a certain website whose sole function in existing is to obfuscate the true origins of photographs, I do not know the true origin of this photograph. Not without doing proper archive research, and I don't know how to do that. If you've been watching closely, you'll have seen me throw down all of the base coats and some simple highlights. Black and grey for the uniform, dark and light green wet blend for the cloak. In some way I got sidetracked or distracted and painted the face in what I can only describe as subconscious. It's possible that I hadn't cleaned the mini properly around the face, or that my primer caused some fuzziness, or that my skin tone paints went on too thick, or that by painting the highlights too quickly I tore the paint as it was drying. I'm not sure, and even reviewing the footage I can't quite place where I went wrong. But whatever the cause, the face was pretty terrible, and could easily be classed as failed if you're holding yourself to some arbitrary standard of elitism. However, this isn't even the big fail of this model. That'll come later on. I was, in the moment, quite disappointed in myself. I felt I had spoiled the model with how the face and eyes look, so I went about procrastinating with every other part of the model. I painted the belt buckle, I painted the boots and the base, and then I gave the base some dry brushing. I even went off to do the camouflage pattern to distract myself. This is very much the same recipe for camo that I've shown in my previous blurry videos. I pair up some paints, black and grey, darker browns with lighter browns, and so on. Taking the darker of each pair, I paint as random a series of stripes as I can manage. I try to deliberately break any pattern if I see myself falling into one. Then I take the lighter of the paired colour and bring in the highlights that exist on the cloak below it. Essentially, my goal is to make the cloak look like a camouflage pattern that is highlighted as a whole, rather than the green being highlighted and then just having some stripes dumped on top. Sometimes this works better than others. Overall, I feel pretty happy with how it looks this time. You know, even after painting all of the camo, I still didn't want to go back to fix the face. So I watered down some blue that was on my wet palette and put a drop of essentially a blue wash into the scope. I also noticed that she's not carrying her straight silver. When I got this model from Victoria Miniatures, I spotted some other Tanith or Tanith adjacent things that will pop up in future videos, but specifically I got a few of these sheathed bayonets. And from the quantity you can probably tell that I've given up on my plan of not having a Tanith army. But I can't put it off forever. I have to reset the face somehow. Short of paint stripping, the only thing I can think of that might work is using a wash, which would darken the whole thing so I can re-highlight. And this mostly worked. Having a second round through the face highlights and redoing the eyes did improve things. You wouldn't believe it by looking, but it is an improvement. This face is now fine for line infantry. It's not quite what I wanted from a display model. I'm tempted, even now, to paint strip, maybe just the head, and go again from resin to varnish. But redoing the face isn't the ruination of this model that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. You see, I finished this model, and I was setting up to take my hero shots for the end of the video. Even with the not amazing face, I was pretty happy with the model as a whole. Then disaster happened. My janky setup for photographing minis fell down on my sniper, and as you can see, it broke into many pieces. Now, that is a ruined model. And I genuinely spent over an hour crawling around on the floor to find all of the pieces, particularly of the barrel that went flying across the room. Whilst I started filming gluing her back together, I didn't think it was ever going to be in frame or in focus, and it just made gluing tiny things back together even harder. So for a second time, I'll take a turntable shot with the background a little further away so it doesn't fall on her again. And there you have it, a model ruined twice, and recovered, well, 1.5 times. Interestingly, this model never made it into my pile of opportunity. I painted her straight out of the shipping box. But if nothing else, I want you to take away from this video that you should paint your own models. Paint the ones that you will enjoy the most. Paint the ones that you'll have the most fun painting. Because no matter what, it can't come out as bad as this, can it? But with all that said, I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.